afternoon, morning, good day. How is everybody doing today? We are here for another session of the Microsoft Community Connections events that we're doing. And this one, we're really, really happy to be talking about what's been happening, especially with Ignite. And we'll get to a lot of that stuff, but let's get some things out of the way before we even get started. So we're going to talk through just some kickoff stuff, connection itself, the community connection itself, and then Matt Sims and I are going to kind of talk through and kind of talk back and forth about what we saw at Ignite, or what was announced, I should say, at Ignite, and what kind of things we're excited about. But please throw in the chat. We want to know what you guys are excited about, what things are going on there. And then some final thoughts, and then we're going to wrap up for today. So going to be a quick one as always, but make sure, again, we want to follow the Microsoft then code of conduct. Just so you know, very important, just make sure you're treating everybody like you like to be treated yourself. And, you know, we don't want any harassment or anything happening during these events, so we appreciate that you not doing that. You are muted. If you do have anything that like you want to come off mute, please throw your hand up there. Otherwise, throw it in the chat. We want to hear what you have to say on this one. Know that we will be are recording this. That's important to understand, and that we will be posting this on our YouTube channel, and you'll get the links for that. If you haven't done that, you can go to the team as well to find that information. Don't forget who we are, what we're here about. It's about Teams Phone. It's about you to be able to understand what's going on with that and interact as a community. Remember, there's two parts. There's the Microsoft team. If you haven't done that, make sure that you go and register, and that's that link you see over here, the aka.ms/mscommunityreg. That will get you registered into that. We'll get you added into that team. And then you can connect with other people that work with Teams Phone and ask us questions too. We frequently on there and responding to a lot of those questions. Just don't forget, we have these every third Thursday of the month, and we'll have more topics coming up soon. These are the dates that we have set up in December. Looking forward to this one. We are going to be talking about the shared calling feature that was really talked about at Ignite and prior to that. So we're going to do a little bit more deep dive into what that really experience is for shared calling. But again, the third Thursday of the month, and we have a couple more coming up here. YouTube, make sure you get a chance to get out there and subscribe. We had a lot of people jump in from the last time, so make sure you take an opportunity to do that. And with that, I got a poll question. All right, go ahead and fill that out. Are you registered and are you attending? And obviously you don't have to be in person, right? There is the online virtual side of things. So make sure you go ahead and submit and see how we're doing. Looks like there's a lot of people that are doing it so far, or they're actually there and watching. Go ahead, and if you have a chance, go ahead and throw in chat what your favorite session you've seen so far with the Ignite. We did the instant poll too. Wow. Trying everything here, guys. All right. Let's move on to it. So Matt and I, we were sitting down and kind of talking through things yesterday, and just decided, hey, we're going to go, and I'll grab the post as well. Let's just go through the post that was put with this, right? And so this was actually pushed out this actually it was yesterday, I think it was, made available, talking about all the different capabilities and features that were announced at Ignite. And Matt, I mean, first looking at all this plethora of cool stuff that's coming, what was your reaction?
Yeah. First off, Don, it's great to be chatting, and
yes.
I always like this time of year. It's always fun to see the workload specific innovation that's there, and then also the big top line announcements. Really enjoyed the keynote yesterday from Satya Nadella, and I mean, the thing that struck me was, just like every other workload, Teams Phone is getting in on the AI action, and so the Copilot stuff I think is pretty interesting. And shared calling, as you mentioned, I think there's pretty much every customer conversation that I'm in these days. We talk about shared calling because I think that it meets the market where a lot of enterprises are viewing calling these days. So I think there's lots to talk about. How about you? What really struck you?
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, first, I think that the whole Copilot thing is just crazy how we're literally putting that across everything that we do here at Microsoft. What did I see? Power BI Copilot just was announced recently, and I mean, just so much that's going to be happening wrapped around that, and how we're throwing a lot of that into everyday work life and productivity capabilities. I think that's huge. The things
Absolutely,
that
yeah.
yeah, and I think the
One
things that we're seeing.
particular
Oh, go ahead.
and one particular thing that I was really pleased to see is that we are going to no longer require enabling transcription and recording to allow for Copilot to do its magic, because a lot of my customers are in the healthcare and life sciences industry, and
Yep.
so for regulatory and
want that.
compliance reasons, makes things challenging when there's retention happening. So
Absolutely.
really happy to see that.
That was a huge announcement, I thought, yesterday. Not necessarily related to phone, but I think it's something that from a Copilot and integrating and utilizing and adopting, I think that's huge.
Yeah, absolutely. So Sean puts a good question in the chat, which is talking about like describing the Copilot solution. So I'll give a first stab at it, Sean. And by no means am I like the authority on it, but how I would describe it, specifically related to Teams Phone, is that it is using a transcript of a PSTN call or an IP call, and it is using that and feeding it in to a large language model, which can allow you to, just much like ChatGPT, you can do things like summarize the conversation. You can ask questions about the call even while it's going on. So, for example, you can have it list out the topics that were discussed. But again, all that's happening in real time.
Yep.
And like a lot of the AI stuff that we're doing with Copilot, we're building on top of what's there with ChatGPT by using something called a RAG pattern, retrieval augmented generation, which allows you to take a data source that you know to ground the large language model. So it's pretty cool, and it uses the power of the Microsoft Graph coupled with all of the true magic of the large language models like GPT.
Yep. Yeah, and I mean, I like the capability of like in real time be able to get that information, like what's this person's sentiment, what's the conversation happening, what's going on with, um, what are my action items out of that, so I don't actually have to take notes and I can just focus on the conversation versus having to write things down. Those types of things I think are very important.
Yeah, I mean, I think you hit on something, Don, which is a lot of I think the magic and the power of it is it's like you're delegating a lot of the rote processes in a meeting to AI, so you can be more present. I mean, that's the thing that is really awesome. The intelligent meeting recap is something, and it's not a Teams Phone thing, but the intelligent meeting recap is a great example of that, where it's the AI is transcribing things and it's summarizing the content of the meeting so that you can just focus on being in the meeting and the higher level participation.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't have to worry about those other things or having somebody do with it. Everybody's engaged at that point, for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so I mean, let's take a look at some of these things that we kind of talked about, right? So The first one that we kind of hit was the whole voice isolation piece. And I know that we've had noise suppression in Teams for quite a while. I thought this was really interesting because it's taking that capability and bumping it up just a touch more so that you're actually able to go in there and enroll your voice so it knows who you are and then literally can wipe out anything and everything behind you so it's only just your voice. And thinking about, some of those scenarios where you may never be in a quiet spot all the time, that's got to be a godsend.
Yeah, really, really cool. I love how you described that because it is like kind of that next evolution of the AI noise suppression where it's that much more specific now and really, really neat. I'm kind of an audio nerd, so I thought that was that one jumped out to me too.
Yeah.
The other thing that I think is interesting is that this feature seems to mirror some work that's being done in the Teams room space where there's a face enrollment feature where you can and the value in that feature is that in a meeting room you can identify people who are sitting around a conference room table so then in the transcript they can be identified, and it's just really neat.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, and I think it also kind of reminds me of some of the microphones that have that intelligent capability too. You register your voice, and then when you're in a meeting, even if you're in a room, it'll still know that's Matt as opposed to Don, right? If we're in a room versus everybody else online or at home. So absolutely.
Yeah, and I love just like this, and like I guess it's this point was made again and again in Satya's keynote yesterday, but with all this AI, all these AI features, there's this natural, I would say, this natural fear of data privacy, and so like there is that manual enrollment process where users have to opt in order to take advantage of the feature.
Oh, absolutely.
So that's not going to do anything without your explicit consent.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and that's everything across the board of what we're trying to do here with all this new Copilot stuff. And you'll see a lot more of that as we move forward.
Cool.
So go ahead. Hey, anything else that you thought were like, ooh, wow? I know customers right now that have been wanting this type of scenario.
Yeah, so this is not really sexy, but I actually was really pleased to see some of the updates around SIP Gateway. Just in terms of like getting the solution over the last 5 or 10% for, I would say, kind of niche scenarios. So things SIP gave support for overhead paging and for analog telephony adapters. I think that's again, it's not like it's nothing as fun or as wild as the AI stuff, but that's something that, you just most enterprises require that. Hey, David, you got a question?
They wanted it for a while, right? So yes.
Yeah, absolutely. David, please come off mute.
We got to let him come off mute. Hello, Mike.
And really, like, this is, we want this to be truly a community. So thank you for, bringing your questions. And if we know the answers off the top of our heads, we will tell you. And if we don't, then we will take them back and make sure that they get answered in the Microsoft team. And in between last meeting and this meeting, we did get some nice engagement and some folks asking questions in the team. We'd love to see more of that. Like we're all better when we can share the knowledge.
Yeah. So David said he hit the wrong button, but he did have a couple questions. Do we have any ETN GA for the real-time analytics of auto attendance and call queues? Starting to see the queue app appear in some tenants. I'm hoping the queues app doesn't appear in any tenant yet, David, only because I know it's in tap still, and I have a couple customers that are actually playing around with it right now. So hopefully you're not seeing any remnants of that out there. I do feel, based off of what I'm seeing with the Queues app, and if you're not familiar with the Queues app, guys, this is something that's really bringing together what we've found difficult to be able to manage and do things with call queues in general, right? And being able to have an app that brings all your call queues in one spot as a supervisor, as an agent, and what David's asking, that real-time analytics piece that is supposed to be coming out with that app. That's what we are seeing at this point, and we're hoping that is going to be the case at the end. But it's still in development, no GA on that as of yet, just because we're still in literally the development phase of that.
Absolutely. And then the last thing I would add is around administrative functions for Copilot. I would say there's not going to be, I would say probably no stone is going to be left unturned with Copilot making its way, Copilot functionality making its way to all of the Microsoft technologies. One example that I'm not aware of anything that we're doing for Microsoft first party yet around administrative activities in Teams Phone, but there is there's a partner called Softel, and I just happened to see this morning that they just announced a Copilot based solution designed around phone system administration. So I would check that out.
That would be cool. Good. And then Sean's curious about that Q app as well. The overall approach, how's it going to change this for customers? You know, Sean, I think right now it's really going to be being able to quickly get at your queue and have the ability to have a supervisor designated as that person to be able to jump in and do things. I think that's going to be a huge part of it, but it's still in development right now, Sean, so I don't want to get too far into it just in case, right? Yeah.
Oh,
Okay.
yeah. So Greg, great question about assigning multiple lines. Do you want to take that, Don, or I'm happy to take that either way?
Go ahead. Yeah, that is a good thing that's coming down the line pretty quick.
Yeah, absolutely. So this is something. So the idea here, we're going to be shipping in the next. I think it's in the next quarter or so.
Great.
Something we're calling private line. The standard use case for it is for executives, where you would have a published phone number, and then you would have a second private line that, like, it would be typically it's an unpublished number. And so the important, I would say, caveats around it are it's inbound routing only. So it does allow for that second call for inbound call routing purposes.
Where you still use your other main number for your outbound if that's the case. But this one is meant to, even if you look at the marketing stuff, meant to bypass your delegates. It meant to be going right to you without having to worry about anything, but it is that other secondary line. Yeah.
Exactly. And then I think we'd be remiss to not mention that there's been, within the last few months, there's been a major enhancements made to our delegation capabilities within Teams Phone. So that's both in the Teams app for the desktop app, but also on the Teams Phone purpose-built native phones, the native devices. So if you haven't looked at that in a while, Greg, that might, depending on the use case, I would say private line meets certain use cases, but then also the enhanced delegation.
Yeah. I thought I had seen, maybe that's coming in the future, that enhanced delegation piece is also coming to the mobile app as well, which would make it a lot easier. Especially, I've had a couple customers that are like, the executive admins, they're constantly running around and they are not at their desk all the time. So they're going to need to have something that is easier for them to see that and do it as a delegate on their phone. So
yeah. So that's interesting use case. I mean, around this attorney that has kind of a local presence in multiple markets. For outbound, if it's an outbound calling thing, you can use caller ID policies to manage that. There's still work that needs to happen for an individual to truly have there's certain multi-line scenarios we don't have support yet for. There's a lot of ground you can cover between private line plus delegation and call queues, etc. But like, it's not there still might be some niche scenarios that are not covered.
Exactly. Yeah. So good point. Thank you, Greg. Thank you guys for jumping in on that. Are you able to comment?
James, nice to see you there, James.
Hey there. David Continue, I think it's also the Q app. Coach Barge will be available through distribution versus the current delegate setup. I do know that for that Q app, that is on the docket to be able to be part of it. That they will want a lot to be able to do Barge, Whisper, Monitor, those types of things. So as far as how that's being done through distribution or delegate, I'm not quite sure how that's working at this point, but we'll get more details as that come out. All right. The other thing that I noted, and it wasn't something that was just announced at Ignite. It was something that we had even prior to, but I think it's still a really good thing, especially for some of our frontline worker type scenarios, is the team shared device support for Android mobile devices. Being able to have a shared device that's not like a permanent cap phone type scenario or a cap device type scenario. I'm mobile. I actually have Wi-Fi or I have cellular capabilities, and I can walk around with it, and I don't have to sign in, sign out. I give it to the next guy that's on the on shift working. Easier to be able to handle. I still get voicemail. I still can do call queues if I want to be able to do that. I find that one of those things that like not many people know about it, and once they know about it, like yes, we're moving pretty quick.
Yeah, it's a great point. It just opens up a lot of flexibility to be able to handle those scenarios on a Android device.
Exactly. And I know we're going to be talking about this in December, but quick, what's your reaction to the whole shared calling thing that we came up with recently?
Yeah, I mean, I would say the two things, the two capabilities or features or announcements or whatever that I just can't have any conversation these days without discussing are the AI, the Copilot, and then shared calling.
Yeah.
And shared calling, I love. Someone had referred to it as Teams calling or Teams phone on demand, which I think is a good way to think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
And so maybe we'll put a couple of links just to whet people's appetites in the chat. But if you haven't seen it, what shared calling allows you to do is share, kind of pool people together. So if you have folks that are not making frequent calls to the PSTN, I'm a good example of this. You can bundle them together in a shared calling policy. They can takes almost no administrative work to get set up, and then they can make outbound calls from Teams. It's a great way to get started with Teams phone, especially for customers that already own the licensing. So if you're an E5 shop, it's a great way to get your feet wet with the solution.
Yeah. And the nice thing is that in a lot of scenarios, it would be for that outbound, but we can handle inbound with that, right? And we can handle
for sure
911 for that too. I mean, it's there, it's working. Customers are already excited about utilizing it. So great.
Yeah, the
great.
E911, then the E911 piece. I'm glad you mentioned that because that's just in the States, that's a key requirement in every telephony scenario, and that has been thought of, is accounted for with shared calling.
Agreed. Yep. Yeah. So I mean, I kind of felt really good about a lot of the things that were coming out from Ignite. Yeah, some of the things we knew about ahead of time, but I know that like one of the things they just announced was the fact that calling plans in Hong Kong was a big deal because we have a lot of customers that are in that area and had presence there. So having that capability just made it a lot easier to be able to go Microsoft 100%, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Great. I'm glad that you called that out because you're right. In Asia Pacific, it's great to be able to have calling plans right out of Hong Kong.
Absolutely. So anything else that you thought from the Ignite announcements you want to touch on before we finish up?
Well, the last thing, and this is another one that kind of flies under the radar, but I have had come up with customers, is because there's so much spam calling these days. There's a nice feature that we shipped, again, kind of under the radar, to be able to, as an administrator, dictate the routing of calls coming in from the PSTN differently than Teams calls for internal calling, so that you can redirect those calls to voicemail. And specifically, I've seen this in executive scenarios where they want to make sure that those calls don't ever ring their line or the delegates.
Yeah, they called it external call routing capability. It's been in there. Actually, it's been in there for a little while, but I don't think it's gotten a lot of hoopla, which is good.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Well, thank you, Matt, for talking about Ignite 2023 and some of the Teams phone pieces. Let's do a quick second poll, and let's see what you guys think is, if it decides it wants to come up here. All right. What feature did you guys feel from these announcements are important for you and your organization? You take a couple seconds and do that. That would be great. And it's a word cloud, so go ahead and put in a couple words that you thought, different features that we were talking about. That would be good. And while you were doing that, oh, hang on, there we go. That's what I wanted to do. Let us know how we did. Go ahead and use the QR code, or you can go to our aka.ms. And I'm throwing it in here. We really want to know what you guys think of this. We also want to know if there's any topics that you would like us to talk about. Remember, we're focusing on Teams Phone and related technologies that are go around with that. So please take a couple seconds to do that. And I'm looking at the responses that I see. I see people are keen on the private line capability. They're also on the SIP gateway. We have a few people that are really looking at that. Shared calling, yes, and Teams Copilot. Well, there's interest. I think we got a couple people out there interested in that, Matt.
Perfect. Yeah, maybe we'll tack that onto the calendar for January or February.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would agree. I think that's a good idea. Couple call to actions, and we'll let you guys go. Don't forget about our YouTube channel that we have that we'll post here in a couple days. I'll take the recording and slice and dice it and get it up there. Don't forget about our registration. If you are not registered and be part of the Teams community, I looked at it today. We have over 200 people that are in that right now. And by the way, it's not just here in the United States, it's international now. So thank you guys for jumping in and being a part of those conversations. We really appreciate that, and continue the conversation in those chats. And with that, we thank you for today. Appreciate your time and jumping on with us. Have a great rest of your day. Good Ignite.
Have a great day.
Bye, guys.